Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Now Debate. I'm Jared Walters, joined as normal by my good and dear friend, Mr. Richard Oliver. And today we have the pleasure of welcoming back Jessie Ann Nichols-George. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing well.
Good.
And thank you for everyone who's joining us. For those who've been following the channel will know that Anne has done a couple of interviews with us before. Some amazing insights this year with your code work, Anne. Just to give a little bit of background for those who's joining us, Anne is a code interpreter who has you write a yearly book called The Code Journey, which breaks down basically every single day of the forthcoming year by the codes of which you interpret. If I've got that right. In the last couple of shows, you've read Richard like stereo instructions based on a couple of numbers that reoccur in his life, have given some astounding predictions that have probably which have quite well turned out to be true, and given some fascinating insights into what's going on in the world around us at the moment. So that's what we thought we'd do. We invite you back onto the show tonight and maybe have a bit of an insight into what the hell is going to happen. What has 2020 got as its encore or its point of no return? Because as the story of the year is continuing, things are gradually getting weirder and weirder. So yeah, how's that for an introduction? Is that okay?
That's a pretty good introduction, I would say. In there.
Pretty good, Jess.
Yeah. Well, the fun thing about the codes and working with them is really this aspect that it's like you know what's going to happen, but you don't always get all of the details, so it's still kind of a little bit of a mystery until it starts to unfold, and then you go, wow, this is pretty interesting. And sometimes you see something happening, and I do it a lot. I know other people do it a lot when they're working with the codes, and they go back in and they're like, okay, what was going on that day? What happened? What did they say for today? And all this news blew up everywhere in the world. And, the codes are kind of a cool thing in the sense that it shows us both what's happening personally and what's happening in the world. And when you're able to start looking at some of the currents, and even though it comes out a little bit different for everybody, as you start to see some of the currents happening, you get used to, okay, this is going to maybe manifest this way or that way, because they tend to show up in your life a certain way. So like if the codes come in and they say, okay, it's going to be unexpected energy today, Richard, that might hit you one way, Jared, it might hit you a different way, might hit me a different way, and we all kind of have our patterns of what that means when it comes up. For those that don't know what the codes are all about, they're really a language. I'm a walk-in. So I've walked into the body that I'm at. There was another soul into it when I first started here. I just wanted to kind of give that little background for anybody that hadn't heard the other podcast on there. But go back and listen to the other ones because it'll give you a lot more insight about all of that. And so this is a language. I'm with a team that's known as the Magi. And we incarnate in very intense times like we have going on today in the world once in a while. And I stepped in for another member of my Magi team. And it's a language that we use. So it's really about taking all kinds of things, but not using them in the traditional way. So I might use aspects of numerology, or I might take a look and see what some of the planets are doing, but I might not look at them from the perspective of a numerologist or an astrologer or things like that. And I take it and I put it in translate it through my own head, basically, through the language of the Magi, and get an understanding of it that way. And then I bring it back around to an understanding that I can share with people back into our human language here, where it can be shared and brought out. So I know a lot of people have probably looked at the codes so far this year, or that have heard about them, or just even those that don't know about them, and have probably found 2020 to be quite a ride, to say the least. What do you guys say on that?
It's been a very strange year because it's been a year of essentially doing nothing, but yet everything happening at the same time. And I know you wanted to get something in just a second, Richard, but just want to highlight a point for those watching who may not have, maybe a little bit skeptical about this. And perhaps you could shed some light, Rich, because you've had direct experience of Anne's code reading in a prior podcast, which people can look back on and listen to. And I just wanted to see if you would share some of your thoughts on that. Just to evidence what we're talking about here. And you guys, as the night progresses, we will see some of the insights that Anne comes up with coming into the forefront. But Richard, what was your experience a couple of sessions ago?
I had, well, obviously, Anne, I give you some numbers that I said had been reoccurring in my life, and you give me like a reading, like a mediumship reading, but through the numbers, and it was just described everything I'd been going through, I was going through, and sort of like little insights into what was next. And it was, I gotta be honest, it was incredibly accurate. And I wanted you to do it anyway. I asked you, didn't I? I wanted you to see what would come up, and I gotta be honest, it was not what I was expecting. I didn't think it was going to read that clearly, and it surprised me. I gotta be honest, it surprised me just from the fact of numbers and what they represent. With all the numbers that make up our life, it was incredible. And as for 2020, it's been. As it started, I made a video where I was quite panicked and I was quite frightened of what I thought was going to occur. And as it's gone on, it seems that it has jolted something in people. And I think without it, I don't think it would have happened. Without the coronavirus, I don't think it would have happened in the way it has. So in hindsight, it's done something that was necessary. That's the way I feel about it.
I think I could pretty much agree with that. It certainly changed my outlook on a lot of the things that I've personally been going through this year. And I'll be honest with you, for me personally, it's challenged a lot of my opinions. It's challenged a lot of my viewpoints. And it's actually made me go back and reanalyze quite a lot of things that I was believing and why I was believing them, and identifying flaws in my arguments, and sort of just really sort of sitting back at the conversation we had the other day, Richard, and saying, is that actually how I feel, or have I said it that often that I feel that way, that I actually believe I feel that way when I actually don't? And it's been kind of that, for me personally, 2020 has been that kind of journey. It's been a journey of, as I said, nothing happening, but everything happening at the same time.
Yeah.
You see you laughing at that now. You both have some insight into that. She's like, I wrote this back in 2019, and guys, honestly, I've put a link to in the description below. You could do worse, even this far into 2020, and picking up a copy of the Code Journey, because, and Richard, you can vouch for this because you've read some of it. I've read some of it, and it's been quite on the money.
It is. It is. I mean, it is.
And I think the thing about the codes is they're really sharing with us the truth, and that's unfiltered. The truth is not about this side or that side. It's really about the observation, and it's really about sitting with the core processes and the core pieces, as opposed to forcing everything to fit the way you want it to fit. And so it's unwinding a lot of our programming, a lot of our false programming and our false beliefs, and it's getting us to look at things from the raw core essence of them. So it automatically brings us into this soul alignment. It automatically brings us into alignment with divine presence as a result of that. And it's so interesting how, like I said, it's both a personal journey and a journey that we're all sharing at the same time. And for each person, it just unfolds a little bit different. Even though you have exactly the same influences, it unfolds a little different. I'm going to show the book for 2020. If I can get it up here, maybe it'll show in there pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's a nice thick book. It's about 650, 700 pages that I put out every year. I put out a new edition for it because every year we have different things going on and different currents and energy patterns. And hopefully the 2021 book is going to be out in about a month. Sometime in the next month it'll be out. And
probably for a pre-order of that.
Is it a big book, Anne? Is it a big book?
It's a big book.
Oh, that's right then.
Yeah,
I didn't want it to be on like a post-it note.
We're screwed.
No, it's definitely not thin like a post-it note. This is like probably, I don't know. I'm not very good with measurements, but I would say, it's at least an inch and a half in the binder. Just to give you an idea,
it is going to be a 2021.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about.
So, like half of my index finger is about the size of, of the book, the width of the book. It's pretty hefty in there. So, they're fun. They're fun to work with. It's fun to, see what unfolds. And even myself, I go back and I'm reading through something that's current, and I'm sitting there going, wow, this is amazing that I, pulled certain specific words a year ago or, when I was writing it and what was coming out. And so it is a lot of fun. I think we still have a lot to get through, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. But the people that have started
2020 to go out with, I don't know. It's what they say is like the climax, isn't it? As we get to the end of the year, it's are we going to see it like an escalation? I tell you what, I'm just going to throw the floor open to you. What are we going to see in the next 4 months going into 2021? Now we know we're going to make it.
We've still got a fair amount, and I can give people a heads up, and I know that we'll connect back together before 2021 and give people some insight on 2021. But as a general overview, 2021 is still going to be quite a ride, and I'm just going to give people that heads up, not to defeat anybody, but to realize that we're not out of it. And as I've said many times, we are in a 4 to 5 year period of major transformation. And what comes out of this really depends on how we decide we want to deal with it. And while none of us have liked having the world events going on that have been going on, we do find that they're a catalyst for incredibly important things in humanity and incredibly important things for us personally. And it's getting us to look at the truth. It's getting us to face the lies that we've chosen not to ignore, that we can't ignore anymore in our world. It's getting us to get real and pay attention to what's happening, to find our voice again, and to realize that just being complacent and sitting back and doing nothing, of course, we have many layers. We can't get away with just doing nothing anymore. We're going to have to take a stand collectively, individually, things like that. And yet, as you mentioned, Jared, even in this period of what feels like doing nothing, we've been doing tons. And that's the part. It's all about embracing these flows. These flows and shifts of things are happening all the time. But we're in the times that most souls came here for. This is the real soul work that's going on. So I kind of broke some of today's information down into things that are still left in the year's energy, and then I broke it down by the month. And we can actually get in. I did take a look at what we might expect out of the presidential candidacy, the election that's coming up, and give a little insight about that, which I'm sure a lot of people are really interested to find out where that's going to go.
I am very interested where that's going to go.
I can't wait. I'm just going to shut up and let you talk.
Yeah.
You have my undivided attention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so still to go in our 2020 currents here. We're going to need to continue to have patience with things. And this is a real challenge because we need to have patience, but we have all of this urgency energy and this stress, which is also going to be strong. So it's kind of like, it's like being in the 11th hour where people are feeling the pressure of a deadline. They know they've got to get through something. They know they've got to finish something. They know we're on the brink of completing something or transitioning into something else. And yet we've got to have patience with that. We can't rush it. We can't force it. And patience is going to be a huge tool because when we find patience, it brings us into observation. And observation is what is going to help us see the true dynamics of things. Too often, and especially this year, we've seen so much that has charged people politically and into these polarities. And yes, we all have our opinions and things like that, but we've gone into so much battle that for a lot of people, they're not even really looking at what's happening because they've gotten so lost in the battle. And so this end of the year, this last part of the year, we need to really take a careful look at what the foundations we're sitting on right now. Are we, it's not just about an issue. It's not just about racism. It's not just about the virus or wearing masks or things like this. It's about whether we're sitting in hate or whether we're sitting in love. These are our foundations. And whether you like what's happening or whether you like certain people that are involved or not, if you're sitting in hate, you're building on unstable foundations. If you're sitting in love, you're building on a sustainable foundation that we can create actually something pretty magnificent out of this. I mean, the possibilities are there, but we have to seize those possibilities. So this is going to be a big time of reflection. It's going to be a big time of unfolding those foundations during the last part of this year. We're going to need to really stick to what is practical, what's reasonable, and what's responsible. So here again, there are going to be people that aren't going to like that because they're going to have to question things. They're going to have to question beliefs. They're going to have to question what's happening. And they might have to say, hey, I need to give up my opinion a little bit to do the right thing. And there are going to be people that just aren't going to want to give that up. And that's going to make it hard on them. The more that we sit in this resistance, the harder it's going to be for those that sit in that place, those that are fighting a lot of things. So we have to be very careful between getting information out there and being in battle. and it's very likely buttons are going to get pushed. So we're going to continue to have to face the reality that change must happen. Life can't go on the way we've been living. We got very complacent prior to 2020. We got very comfortable in a lot of lifestyles. Sure, wars happened around the world. Sure, political, leaders fought and battled and played their games and all of that. But we didn't really have to deal with it in our own personal lives too much in a lot of countries. And now it's at a point where our world has to change. We have to make shifts. We can't sit in that complacency. So we're going to have to start facing the reality. And this last part of the year is going to make us kind of be forced into looking at that reality. Jared, I know you mentioned this. You've had to question things. You've mentioned being a little bit in that aspect of having to face letting go of some thoughts.
We spoke the other day, we said about I didn't convey it that well because we were speaking over chat, but that's what I've been finding. There's such a lot I've had to step back and again analyze my opinions on everything, because I'm seeing it in both the sort of mainstream opinion and in the sort of conspiratorial opinion sort of way of thinking. And I'm like, well, you can't have it both ways. If what I'm struggling with, especially when you're seeing people I've looked up to, is they're not admitting when they're wrong. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Say you're wrong, because you get nowhere by defending a position that's untenable. But what I'm seeing that a reflection of is, as you said, that need for patience, that need for that person has seen something as particular way for so long that they are not willing or able to look at things from different points of view. And I'm just seeing that in like the reflections of sort of people around me, the way I get certain views and that sort of thing. And I've always been a bit on the critical side anyway, but like everything you've just said, I could personally identify with over the last sort of 3 weeks is what I've been going through. That I can personally identify with having to sort of go, well, I thought of this one way and then I thought of it the other way, and now the mode it's put me in at the moment, even when I've wanted to, even when I've just wanted to tear someone's head off, and I've seen things that have affected me personally that are horrible, horrific. But until I have all the information I can use, I can't act, because it's almost kind of pointless. I need, it's as if like the time is just not ready for it yet. But I know that time is coming. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that's, from what you've just said, that's how I've personally related to it.
And definitely important, because we are needing to look at these things. We're finding out almost on a daily basis that people that we've looked up to are not the people that we need to be looking up to. It's been surrounded with, we need to hold the integrity in our own sphere. And again, we need to get out of it and say, well, I'm going to trust this just because it's coming from so-and-so, or just because it feeds what I want to believe, or things like that. And to step back and say, where are these core pieces, the accountability? Where is the core pieces of truth? Where is the core pieces of this? So these are definitely big things. What we want to do, and I think what happens in times like what we've been dealing with 2020 and what we're likely to deal with in 2021, is that we want to keep stepping back out of the drama. We want to keep getting our own reality checks. We need to keep balancing with spiritual time, but we want to focus on breakthroughs and advancements, and those being true ones, not ones that are based in lies, not ones that are based in somebody's agenda, but true breakthroughs for us as a human race, breaking through our biases and things like that, to say, you're a person that is in need of help, so I'm going to help you, period. Getting back to the core fundamentals. So focusing on that will help to keep us from creating some of the doom and gloom scenarios that that are being fed to us, because we don't have to just automatically accept that. We can say, well, okay, if this time is all about transformation and shift and change, and it's about embracing it, well, we can change into something good just as much as we can change into something that is not good for us.
Yeah, absolutely
And
agree with that.
so that was part of, I wanted to bring some of those little tidbits in of areas of focus with this, because I don't want it to be all doom and gloom for people, because it's not that.
No.
We do have options. We do have possibilities. And I can see Richard probably wants to say something.
No, I was not.
Okay.
Yeah, I was deep in thought then. I was thinking about my own. I was just thinking about how I feel in all this, and I have got an idea of what I believe is going on, right? And I'm just going to stick to that, and then see if the rest of the world catches up to what I believe, and that's the best way of myself approaching it, because there's so much conflicting information. And sorry, Anne, have you got is there a road? You know the window behind you?
Yeah.
Is there a road out there?
I have not behind me, but I have a road up front from me.
Oh, right. I keep seeing the weirdest lights going past the screen, and I keep catching it with my eye, and I'm just wondering if it's like a reflection or something. But because I'm not seeing it on you.
I've got a window back there. There's trees outside the window. But maybe
I've seen it about 5 times now. The weirdest light anomalies going past you in the background. Sorry, got distracted. It was one then.
But there might be some reflection. There is a parking lot back there, so maybe if there's some cars coming and going, there might be something.
I'll review the video when we finish. When it goes back up on the channel.
But it's like I sit above the lot, so I don't know how much those reflections would be coming through my window.
Honestly, we'll go back over this, Jar, right? And I'll show you one.
All right,
Jazz, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, because I've noticed your face morphing a couple of times, Anne. So I can definitely see you're tapping into something when you're working. I can definitely see that. I've seen your face morph about 2 or 3 times.
It's been quite distracting. But anyway, sorry, as I was saying, I'm sticking to that, and because I'm struggling to see how it could be possible to be any other way at the minute in regards to COVID and the vaccine and the masks and the political turmoil. And I'm just sort of sticking to what I believe is going on. And I'm just trying to sort of like make it all fit in with that. Because at the moment, what they're saying is reality is just falling flat. And what it looks like is happening is coming to the forefront. And it's hard not to get in that. I'm seeing it with like things like Facebook and social media. It's hard not to get into a conflict over beliefs, and that seems to be something that's, like you said. And I'm trying to say whether it's right or wrong, right? Whether it's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. What is happening is wrong. So like we're making children wear masks in schools, for example, is wrong. Making them socially distance is wrong. Virus or not, it's going to cause harm. It's going to cause as much harm as if there was a virus. So I'm trying to come at it with that point of view to people, try and make them see, that's how I can't help feeling like that. So, but I'm seeing more and more people jumping on the bandwagon and saying this is wrong. There's something not right about this.
Yeah, I agree with Richard there.
And that can only be a good thing in my eyes.
Absolutely, and I think we've all said that today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think we are going to continue to see this wakening up. And so much of it comes down to, again, all these lies that are being exposed and the truth that's coming out. And people haven't had the truth to work with. So that has been a challenge. So they're making, obviously, decisions based on lies versus making decisions based on truth. Now, in 2020, another thing that we're going to see through the end of this year is we really want to pay attention to where natural disasters rise, because I think we're still going to see a lot of natural disasters. Just today, prior to coming on, we know that Hurricane Laura out here in the States went up to a level 4 hurricane. So it's in a pretty dangerous position right now. In my Connecting Codes podcast, which should be getting released hopefully tonight in a few hours or so, whenever I can get it uploaded after our show and get it all pulled together. I'm going to be talking in there about the fires that are going on in California, because there's huge things connected into that of what's been happening and how much is burning out there. But it's showing really where we see these natural disasters rising up. It's showing where there is a lack of responsibility going on. That's what the codes are telling us for the end of the year, which is why we want to pay attention. So, for example, in California, and that's kind of a good example, their governor out there, Governor Newsom, has been incredibly irresponsible with things going on, to the point that people want to leave the state, and he wants to impose a levy that's a 90% levy if they move out of state, a tax. Now, how are people going to pay a 90% tax? And they're going to have to pay, not every year it will go down, but they're going to have to pay this levy for 10 years. And, so there's things like that. That's hugely irresponsible. Many of the decisions he's made. So where we see our leaders and our people who are ruling, whether it's ruling a state or a country or just a person of influence, be that an organization like health organizations or any of those things, or royalty or things like that. And where these natural disasters come up, we need to take a look, because somewhere there's a big key player that is being irresponsible, that's leading us down an unfavorable path and things. And our ongoing influences, which run from, they started on April 25th and they go through October 4th. So this is still going on about another month. We have a lot that's coming up related to integrity and true importance, looking at what's really key, looking at what's really needed. So these are things that are going to be, we're going to continue to see stuff come out about the infrastructure in places, our ability as a country to be self-sufficient, no matter what country you're in. Because one of the big things that we've learned from what's been happening this year is how dependent or how self-sufficient we can be. And no country is going to be favored by having to depend on all the other countries or one or two key countries for survival. So we've seen this in the world affairs, right, where China kind of wanted everybody dependent on them. Well, when you hit a crisis like that, that's not a good thing. You've got to be able to stand on your own. You've got to be able to have your own resources. Otherwise, your country is going to go under. That's a huge thing. So I think we're going to continue to see things come out, continue to see things being passed that support countries being self-sufficient. And this even comes down to people, the people that are getting out and they're saying, hey, we're not going to tolerate something. We're not going to do this. And they're gathering in these massive groups of people, hundreds of thousands or even millions in some places. And they're saying, no, we're not going to go through with this, or we're not going to go through with that. And this is another way of expressing self-sufficiency, as opposed to just having everything be turned over, say, to a government, or, letting other people make all the decisions on things. We forget we have that power. And I think we need to be remembering that we have that power in these times. We have the opportunities to speak up, and we're not completely helpless in things. We will continue to see financial support removed from those who are greedy. So they want us to believe that only the rich are getting richer at this point, but really, we've seen some pretty big crashes. And as things are implemented, natural medicines, therapeutics, and things like this that are much more cost effective. I know in the US, we had caps put on medication cost out here. So now there were people that were paying $450 a month for their medication are now paying $35 a month for their medication. This is a huge thing. This is big pharma crashing. And we're kind of at the, have some of that going on. So these big greedy sources, we're going to continue to see crashes. So I would expect to still see some of central bank systems crashing, World Bank systems that are part of the whole global network crashing, where you've got a lot of greedy hands in that. Some of these foundations and these organizations that have been set up, and they're profiting a lot off of it. We'll see more crashes coming in regards to Gates in there, and he's a whole nother story because he plays into a lot of
lovely Mr. Gates.
yes, our lovely Mr. Let's give everybody the whole world shots person.
There's microchips in them.
And microchips in them, and so he plays into multiple aspects of what is happening that the codes show us, from these good versus evil struggles and things like that. But we're also seeing part of the desperation of those agendas being pushed so hard onto us has to do with how much truth is coming out, because they're trying to make their agenda go through before the truth gets totally out, because if the truth comes out, nobody's going to be with them. Nobody is going to support them. Their organizations are crashing, so there's a lot of panic coming out from them in this aspect. And we're in a time between now and October 4th where the punishments are harsher. So it's really cool, actually, when we see these things happening during this time, right? We had Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested during this time, and that's just spilling and spilling. And so
I was about to ask you about that, actually, because I've been seeing this coming up a lot lately about I know a law's just passed in Australia this year where it prevents victims of sexual abuse actually speaking out against people who have been convicted of their abuse. And there seems to be a lot of crackdown, and also there's a lot of stuff around paedophilia coming out. We're actually seeing protests in the UK around Buckingham Palace surrounding Prince Andrew and the whole affair with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. I was wondering if that was going to start coming out more, because that's how it genuinely feels to me.
This is all unfolding, and she's continuing to sing. She's continuing to give names. She's continuing to open this up. And so this is why there's actually just so many things that are being pushed through the legal system right now, because the code energy favors the underdog. It favors the people who have been suppressed. So I saw that aspect of where victims were not allowed to speak out. And we need to take a look at that, because if you've got a country that is suppressing that country is not operating in integrity. They're feeling fear. They're feeling pressure right now. They feel their whole status threatened right now. And so what they know is to take their fear and push it on everybody else by trying to scare them into being quiet. Well, this isn't going to work during this time. Personal rights continue to be a huge issue. There continues to be a lot going on around that. And, here again, the underdog is not willing to be silenced. And the bigger the threats get on people, the more it backfires on the people making the threats. Because what's happening is you're pushing people to that limit where they say, well, you know what, I have nothing left to lose. And you're pushing people to the limit that says, I don't care what happens to me for speaking out. I'm going to speak out because it's wrong. And we're seeing more and more and more of this happening. And yes, it's a rough ride to break these patterns, but they have to be done. these patterns have to be broken in order to create the foundations that we need to move forward with. And so these are important things coming up.
Yeah, my mate, we was having a conversation the other night, and I'm going to get this completely wrong, right? But it was like one of the mayors, I think her name is like Flip Flop or Lollipop or something along our lines. I can't quite remember. And she was trying to say, cut the police funding, right? She wanted the police funding cut. And then she got about 100 officers to watch her neighborhood. And that's the extremes I can't get my head around. Why didn't the police just say, well, no, you know, you're not backing us. So what do you want? And you want us to like protect your entire neighborhood? It's, you know, it's like the hypocrisy of it. And I think a lot of, I think if the police started to wake up to it,
I think is the right word.
Yeah, whatever it is. If the police started to, you know, say something about it, that would make a change. But it just seems, I don't know. It with things like that, I just don't know why they do it. I don't know why they do it.
We're having the same thing with hospitals, right? And I'm having people, and I've had it now with like 4 or 5 different people connected to hospitals, saying that the media were lying about how many people were actually in hospital during the height of the COVID crisis. And I'm like, right, okay, well, some may be more overcrowded than others. So if that was the case, why weren't the staff re-diverted? And the other thing is if there was an issue with the hospitals, what we're being told wasn't what's being happened. The only thing that needs to happen is the people involved in that need to speak out en masse, because that's the only way you're going to get people to start questioning and overruling what the media is telling them. You know, this is the thing. We need people inside these organizations to actually start speaking out.
And this is what we're seeing happening. You guys are a little bit behind us because they've been trying to defund the police in several areas. Some areas they've already initiated it here. But the areas that are doing this is tied into the bigger agendas. So this is why we need to stop and go, okay, this is insane to do this. And we need to start saying who's the people that are pushing this, because those are the people that are tied into the corruption. Now, for example, in New York, and New York has got all kinds of lawsuits on them right now because of how they handled things, because they legally were murdering people in nursing homes over the virus, and what they did, and people weren't standing up. And now, of course, we have a lot of doctors that are coming out. They've tried to suppress the doctors along the way. But in New York, what happened was there were whole police forces that said, you know what, you don't want the police? Goodbye. And they all walked off the job. They said, we're not going to stand around here for you. We're not going to work for free for what you want to implement. We took this oath. We take our oath seriously. We're here to protect people. We're here to defend people. And of course, things have started to shift. There are some that are really shifting, and they're working for the good. And we have to look at each area individually. And we have to realize that where the riots break out, where these different things are happening, are where they're being governed by corrupt people. We had a very similar thing as what you were talking about. We have a mayor in Chicago area, and she was all fine with defunding the police and letting the crime run rampant and letting everything go to all heck. And then when it hit her own personal block, all of a sudden she wanted police. Well, you know what?
It's not the same lady. It might be the same lady, Anne. It might be the same, because he was telling me this story. It's probably the same one. It's just he said her name, and for some reason, Flip Flop was in my head. But I can't imagine it's a Mayor Flip Flop.
Lightfoot, I think, is her name, or something like that.
Lightfoot.
Yeah,
I was close.
Flip Flop.
Yeah, she's
Flip Flop or Lollipop. That's the only things I could think of. Lightfoot. Yeah, it wasn't there.
It's crazy what we're seeing happening, but we have to call out this hypocrisy. You can't say, well, the rules are going to apply to you, but not to me.
Well, we've seen it
And
in the UK, and it's been in the papers, and it's been all over the papers. And this is mainly elderly people, people in care homes, and kids with learning difficulties are finding do not resuscitate on their medical records. And I think the Telegraph has covered it. There's different people that all across the country that has covered this, and people you've not seen on any of the mainstream news. You might have seen it. I don't think you've seen it on many mainstream outlets in the UK. The newspapers have certainly covered it, which I obviously with the British tabloids do have a bit of a reputation. But this is you're getting all these types of things which are breaking down the trust that we have in these institutions, and this is where, like you said, if this is what needs to happen around the world, basically, because like what we said about what was happening in Australia with regards to the victims of sexual abuse. There are people within these organisations. There's got to be good people within these organisations that need to speak out more and need to sort of say, right, well, guys, I'll give you an example. What we did here in the UK was clap for the NHS, and I was watching this YouTube channel, and this doctor, junior doctor, was interviewing a senior doctor, and he's saying, look, we don't really want you guys to clap for the NHS. We don't really agree with it. What we want you guys to do is, get behind us and make sure that the doctors and nurses who are doing a good job, who are facing these things, actually get the rewards they do. Yeah, and this is how it's all sort of played off as a game. And I feel, and I think, especially we're seeing different things in the UK to what you're seeing in the US, but it's symptomatic, like you said. It's six of one, half a dozen of the other, as it's as this is unfolding. And like I say to people, it's okay, one or two random doctors speaking out, but we need a critical mass. Otherwise, there's just going to be, if this is the case. If it's not the case, we need a critical mass to actually say, well, hang on, no, this, why the hell are you saying this? When actually our staff were overworked for the last sort of 4 or 5 months. They were rushed off their feet. So there needs to be, and I think you're finding that on both sides. It's like the truth almost seems to resonate on its own, like you said, and that is going to erode away eventually, any of these other things. But it's just the fact that, I'm having this come to me through, people I know who are connected to, either been through the health system or been connected to it, mostly people who've been connected to it, and within a couple of weeks they're all asking me, what do I think? And I'm thinking, well, the last time I was near a hospital, dude, was like 2 or 3 years ago. I haven't got a clue.
well, and it's so true that we really do need to, in some ways, have our trust broken down. We don't want to lose our ability to trust, but in some ways that's important right now, because we have to be willing to take a look at the hypocrisy. We have to be willing to take a look at how deeply these payoffs have happened. And as you say, like now here in the US, there was like, I want to say 650 doctors that spoke up. And man, they shut them down so fast. They shut down websites on them, everything else, because there were so many of them that came out and spoke the truth. And even Trump has shifted who his medical advisors are now. And he's brought in somebody now that is based on therapeutics and aligns with the truth of things, versus the people who have been there for a long time through many administrations, who have foundations and have taken huge payoffs along the way. He's not. He is pretty much not doing too much anymore. He really doesn't have much of a say or anything. He's pretty much been replaced. He's quietly been pushed out. And one of the things that shows up in our starseeds for the rest of the year, their energy, is that we will continue to see competition and these negative agendas removed piece by piece. We won't always see them right blatantly out in our face, but they'll kind of disappear, and you might one day just kind of go, man, I haven't heard anything about so-and-so for like 3 or 4 months, or however long. And they're being removed by positive partnerships. So the positive partnerships are there, they're in place, they're building, they're strengthening. They may not be as evident in our faces out in the open as we might like, and we probably won't see that until after the election, in all honesty. But those positive relationships are continuing to push that competition out. They're continuing to push the corruption out. And this is the same thing even in our own individual lives. Choice is a God-given gift. It was, and I'll say it over and over again to people, it is one of the most powerful things we have, which is why we cannot allow that to be taken from us. We have choice of where to do our shopping, this market or that market. We have a choice in who we hang out with. And we have to look at those choices that we're making. And it's so powerful, and it's how we implement our power on an individual level, because the corruption will always change to the way we want because they're about greed. And so they're always going to end up doing what we want, but we have to be strong enough to stand up to that. We have to be strong enough to exert our choice to be in a positive direction, to be in a direction that favors truth, because wherever there's truth, there's divine assistance. But if we support the lies, we're going to create trouble. Now, also in the starseed energies, we're in a period right now that started on June 23rd.
So can I just quickly ask you a quick question? First of all, just to elaborate, my mic was slightly off. The person I asked about was Anthony Fauci. Secondly, well, what are the starseed energies? Can I ask? That's quite interesting, connected to... I know a few people on the channel have identified themselves as starseeds and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to quickly ask what that was before you move forward. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So with Fauci, he's just kind of silently being removed, I would say, in things. He's like in the
just
background.
Because we got you, Anne. Sorry, we got you. My mic was off. It was a slight issue on my side.
Okay.
We had your response, but we didn't have the question I asked because I had a slight issue with my mic. So sorry about that.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So June 23rd, well, and the starseeds there are soul groupings. They're the groupings that come in from other places in the universe, and they bring different energies in. So those groupings of souls, their energy becomes present at different times. And we see that both in those that are being birthed right now and the energy that they're bringing forward. And that energy pattern is affecting what happens in our world as well. So from June 23rd to November 29th, we have to really pay attention to the births that are happening, because that is, whether they're happening through loving, caring, wonderful people, or whether they're happening through the very corrupt pedophilia aspects of things in there, because the births that we have happening right now are going to be the next big set of leaders in our world. So we want to pay attention to those, and we especially want to pay attention to where they're connected to celebrities, to royalty, to political figures in the world. And my last Connecting Codes episode from a month ago, I actually delved into who some of those births are. Obviously, I can't cover all of them, but I covered some of the celebrity ones like Katy Perry, and we know what kind of road she's gone down, at least most people do, which is not a very pleasant one in there. And so paying attention to those things, because we have a lot of power plays going on right now in our energy, and we're going to continue to see those power plays throughout the end of the year. We've got a lot of people that are either trying to get power or hold on to power. So we know the good guys, so to say, are trying to continue to bring and acquire more power. But you've also got all the corrupt people in power right now that don't want to let go of their power. And we're seeing a lot of those people, their power is very threatened, which is why we're seeing such a heavy fight from them right now. They're seeing people come in and say, hey, it's not right to take my choice away as to whether I get a vaccine or a shot or don't get one. It's not right to mandate this for my kid to go to school or things like this. So there's pieces like that where they're feeling like, uh-oh, we're losing our power over people. Uh-oh, the people are starting to realize the media is not necessarily their friend anymore, and they're saying lies. And so they're getting trickier and trickier along the way in what they share. So we have this huge firepower, which we're going to see through pretty much the end of November. In there's also a lot of aspects of being shown the lies in the choices of world leaders and influencers in the world. So we're seeing that right now. We're seeing those lies come out more. We're going to see a lot more falls from power with those that are in the corruption. So we're going to be seeing more of that coming still this year in there, which I think is going to be big. The next generation, or the generation of people that we have coming in, this just kicked in August 15th. These influences, they'll be running through the end of the year. So again, a lot more lies and deception getting exposed in things. And yes, this is disorientating for people. Yes, it challenges people to see the lies, and they may sit there and go, well, what can I believe? Where is the truth? How do I know the truth is actually the truth? Because there's so many lies out there. But we have to kind of go through that, and then we have to come inward and feel our way through it, and then open up and say, well, if this is the lies, who is the opposition to that? So if the World Health Organization, if Gates, if Soros, if these people are the lies, if the people trying to defund the police are the lies, who are they opposing? Who are they attacking? Oh, well, there's where your truth is lying. It's kind of an easy deduction in that sense. We're going to still be getting a lot of our learning. We're in a big learning period right now. And that learning is coming through life experiences and hardships. And why? Because we didn't learn before. We didn't pay attention. We just kind of stayed asleep and let people do whatever they wanted to do. And so now it's hit a critical point where we can't avoid that anymore. So it's taking hardships to learn. Well, the more we can open our learning and our wisdom channels and stop just accepting the programs, then our lessons can be more experiences than hardships. And so we have this choice, we have this opportunity. This generational energy that's present right now is also very focused on bringing forth peace efforts. So the really cool thing in all of this is we're starting to see the collapse of this corruption. We're going to see more peace efforts. And it was the treaty that was just signed in the Middle East got signed and completed right after this influence went into place. So it was really cool because I had to go and check the codes of what was happening when that happened. And I'm like, it just hit right after the generational influences that talk about more peace coming forward. And of course, we know that is a biblical thing to have that peace treaty.
What treaty was this? Sorry, because I don't think we've seen much of it in the mainstream news in the UK. So could you elaborate a little bit what the treaty is? Because
it's the Middle East. They moved some things. I think it was the American consulate, was it, that they moved, or some of the base back into Jerusalem. And so, it has to do with the whole, in some ways, I guess, the Jewish culture and things back there, and bringing the polar energies that have been at battle for I don't know how many hundreds of years. But there is a prophecy in the Bible that says that when these two cultures find peace, we're near the end times. And so it's very interesting to see that they finally hit that peace effort. This is something that has never happened in our world. These two have never come together. And I'm sorry that I'm drawing a blank on on exactly the two groupings, but if you go in and I think just Google up like peace agreement Middle East,
we'll put it in the description below, guys. We'll put a
it'll
link in the description below.
it'll
And
come up for
yeah,
that.
we'll put some links in the description below. And when this goes onto the pre-recorded element of YouTube, you'll be able to have a look at it for yourself. I just wanted to ask that. Thanks, Anne, for elaborating on that.
Yeah. And then, of course, the exposure of lies that we've been living under. And I think this is the thing. I think this is, again, a hard piece for people because it's hard for them to accept that they've been living under these lies. It's hard for them to accept seeing where they've been betrayed and they didn't see it. And it's very easy for people to get hard on themselves, come down hard on themselves for not seeing these things. But when you realize how elaborate the deceit and the manipulation and the lies have been, I mean, this has been implemented over so many decades. It's not like all of a sudden somebody's been lying to you. This has been implemented over such a large period of time in such small pieces that it's that's how they've gotten it through, and that's how people have not seen it because they just accepted all the small pieces along the way, thinking none of those things were that big of a deal. But when you put them all together, they become obviously a big deal. We still have, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this again, corruption being stopped during this period of time through the end of the year. There's still, though, a lot of trickster energy where people are lost in the third dimension. So that wraps us back around. It's this good versus evil dynamic. And, what's interesting is evil can only really exist in the third dimension, maybe the fourth dimension, but it can only exist in the denser, heavier dimensions because what it really is a distortion of the truth of itself. So it is natural for closure energy. That's a part of all nature and process and truth is endings and closure. But when it hits the third dimension, those endings and closures can turn into murder. They can turn into violence. They can turn into other things. And that's where we're seeing the trickster energy. And the trickster energy is very tricky. It's very very deceptive. It's going to appear as the truth. It's going to hijack the truth. We've seen this, we're starting to see this in the States anyways, where QAnons are already being framed. And it's not the QAnons. Again, it's another one of the Soros bus everybody in, give them some T-shirts that say Q on them, and then have them break out in riots and then claim that Q is a terrorist group, which Q is not a terrorist group. So when we see these things, it is, they're very tricky in how they manipulate things, and that's going to be present. And why are they making it this way? Again, it comes right back around to being scared, to being afraid, to realizing they're losing their power in the world and they don't like it. They're not happy about it. So this also in this energy pattern, we see it's going to be a time where what we want to do, what we want to focus on as individuals and even as collectives is to clear the uncertainty within us. Because the more uncertainty that we hold on to within ourselves, the more of this trickster energy is going to be present. It relies on us being in conflict internally. It relies on us being in confusion and being undecisive about things. It relies on us not being clear and unfocused. So when we become clear and focused, it has less opportunities and less possibilities to work with. We're shutting down the openings for it to happen and to exist. So the more of us that choose to clear our own uncertainty, then the more we will clear that around our world, the more that we will clear that as a collective, and the more we will continue to see that corruption fall away. We're also during this time going to be shown where we're told something is okay when it isn't. And we see this happening with the shots that they would like to give the whole world. And they're saying, oh, no, it's fine. It's okay. It's, this and that. And it's not. And this is, again, that they flip things. They do the mirrors on things. They'll say, oh, it's okay to do this, but then it's not. And so we have to do our own research. And a lot of people feel overwhelmed by that. So you need to figure out who maybe your sources are going to be that you find are consistently really, really true, and standing in that truth and standing in that integrity, and see what they're saying, but still, keep your own perspective in it, and still make sure you're doing your own looking at things. And our world influences through the end of the year, we're going to see, again, a lot more of these tyrant behaviors are going to be coming to an end. And Trump has said it many times, just wait till November 4th. And a lot of this is all going to go away. Well, this is a big thing. Why November 4th? That's the day after elections here in the US. And that's, we all are kind of anticipating he's going to be reelected. I think pretty much people know that, even if there's a fight over it, and even though the corruption is going to try to pull as many corrupt moves as it can between now and then to keep that from happening.
So who does the code say is going to win the election, or does the code give you that insight, Dan?
I want to get to that in a little bit, but as we get into the month energies, as we get into November's energies, I want to get into that. I'll give some more details on that, but
I'm just going to grab some tissues then, just in case it's Biden. Okay, because you're going to see a grown man cry. Okay, I'm going to be like one of them Starseeds running in the queue. And number 10 Starseed says, "Where are you going?" He's going, "I'm going to Earth, 1970s. I'm going to be a hippie." And then you're going to have one going, "I'm going to the Pleiades." And then you're going to have the poor bugger at the end going, "I got 2020 Earth." Poor Starseed, bless him. So that's how I just wanted to get that out there, because it's me anxious. I'm sweating.
Well, and there's many pieces that do play into it. Now, some of what we see in these world influences, we see the tyrant behaviors ending, especially with corporate giants coming in. We see exposure of corporate payoffs and dangerous practices coming forth. We see big corporations coming to a halt until they change. So when I start to look at all of these things and I see what's happening, and we start to look at the political aspects, I would say Trump is probably going to win. He has so many favorable codes in check. And of course, there's going to be variations with that date. How many different people does he have around him at that time? Is he sitting in the White House? Is he sitting, in his home in whatever is it, Bedford, New Jersey, or something like that? Some of those things, it depends on where he is. His codes are extremely powerful in the White House, which is probably why we haven't seen more things happening there. Even though the riots were around there and they tried to do some things, he was completely protected in so many ways there. His codes as the 45th president are extremely strong, and that's not going to change with a re-election. He's still going to be the 45th president, so he's got favorable codes there. His own personal codes are extremely favorable. His own personal codes are about fighting corruption and he's got a vice president that has also got codes connected to that. And together they are great teachers. As a team, they are great teachers. So he has so many things that are connected to success and victory in his code patterns. I really don't see that there can be any other option. And I really don't see. You can live with that?
I can live with that. I'll take that as gospel. I would rather have Hillary Clinton, right, than Biden, because, you know, with Hillary, she's about 2 coughs and a sneeze away from meeting God as it is. and Trump, you know what you get with Trump, right? He is what he is. You know, he's a bit of a man's man. He likes McDonald's. He's a bit sexist. All right, he did want to build a wall around Mexico. I can't get my brain around that. That, you know, that we all got our faults to bear, but it does seem like he's trying to change things. I mean, they're trying to link him now with Epstein, which is daunting. And, you know, but the evidence I've seen is that he knew Epstein 30 years ago plus, when Epstein just started his little coven, should we call it? And, you know, maybe, fingers crossed, he wasn't part really of that circle. You know, Epstein back in the day was very, 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 very rich when he started this whole thing that he created. So I just can't deal with Biden. I just cannot deal, and I am struggling with the thought of that man being a president.
Yeah, we've called Trump out a few times on this channel, and by no means Trump supporters, but over Biden, no, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not a Trump supporter at all, right? It's just if the man's created, and I hope this is true, and this is what I've seen so far, and I have to look it up. He's created a task force to deal with human trafficking. He's created laws where other countries can be tried for human trafficking, for allowing it to happen in their countries. Just them 2 things give me the faith to think that he may be on the right side. If that's true, I know we had the same thing in the UK with Theresa May. She was in charge of the paedophile investigation, the inquiry thing, and she did it for a couple of years, spent millions of pounds, and it was all lost in the end. She brought no one to justice, and she became prime minister through it. And I just hope it's not that. She was gifted it. And I just hope it's not that kind of scenario. If you start to see, because I think the world is quite oblivious to the fact that sex slavery and human trafficking is the biggest it has ever been in history. This swamps the slave agenda, 100 years ago. It swamps it. And I think if people can, they've seen so much of what's come from that mindset of slavery that still echoes to today. What is the scale of this trafficking going to do, the impact on our future from it? And this is what I'm kind of concerned about as well. If the scale of this comes out, it's going to damage innocence in this world. It's going to damage it. It's going to make us all think, it's like when you watch Children in Need and you turn a blind eye, you just change channel and you carry on living your life. It's not going to be the same if this is real. It's not something you can, you can just turn off the telly and it's all gone away. It's like I'm noticing people are saying it to me. Oh, I don't look at that on Facebook. It's too much. That's not helping a person that is going through this. It needs to be looked at. You just get to look at it. You don't get to experience it. You don't get to live it. You don't have to live the rest of your life knowing that in your head that you've been through that. You just get to look at it and address it and say, oh, this has got to stop. That's all that's been asked of you, and that's too much for you. So, it's just I know I'm ranting, but I'm quite passionate about their life. So,
Well, now you say you don't understand the wall, for example, but the wall has been a huge catalyst to shutting down human trafficking and shutting down the access for pedophilia to come through and for drug trafficking, for illegals, which are bringing in the diseases and things. He's totally great with people coming in who want to work in our country, be a citizen, do everything legally. It's the illegal aspects that are bringing in the problems, because they're the ones that are doing the things for money. And when you look at Trump, look at everybody who's against him. It's the communist structures who are against him. So right there, that should tell you, why are they so afraid of him? Because he's the only one that's got enough power right now to really bring them down. And we are going to see it come out, and it is going to be traumatic for people. And it's not going to be easy for us to stop and realize that as a society, we've allowed our kids to be exposed to different things that have all these connotations. Again, we can't beat ourselves up on the choices we made about things that we didn't know about or weren't aware about. But once we have that awareness, we need to realize, again, we've become very complacent, and we need to pay attention to what our kids are watching. We need to pay attention to what they're being presented. We need to know what these symbols are that represent pedophilia and stop supporting those companies and those organizations. And it's very hard because they like to go in and use a lot of third-party networks, whether that's Wayfair or Etsy or whatever they are, as pawns to make their games happen. And of course, there are a lot of big resources there, but this is another big collective shift that we're working on, is to stop placing money as the center be-all thing, and to look beyond the money to the right thing to do, because we will be so much wealthier and so much more abundant when we focus on doing the right thing than we are when we take these payoffs. And we have to realize that every time we take those payoffs, even if we're taking it out of desperation, that we are feeding the corruption to grow. We're feeding it to continue. So until each one of us says no in whatever capacity in our own little sphere, then, it's not going to shift. No, we're in for hard lessons. That's the reality of it. September's got a lot of lies, deception, manipulation energy that's going to come out. It's going to be showing us a lot about what we need to be paying attention to. But it's also we want to pay attention to where the successes are happening. Because where there's success happening in September, there is truth. And where there is truth, there will also be love. And I think that is a really big thing for us to be aware of. Again, September is requiring patience, and it's requiring us to find peace in observation, to not be in such a rush. Let's sit back and watch what's happening, and really watch it from as an objective position as we can, but to really, really see where are the successes happening, where are the crashes happening, who's the lies, who's the puller to that. Watching those that take command during this time is going to be important, because this is going to be about who is standing for or fighting for divine principles in our world. We're going to have to kind of pay attention to that. The first big part of the month in September, the 1st through the 22nd, so about those first 3 weeks in there, we're going to see a lot of relationship endings coming up where there is lies, deceit, and bigger transitions, that's all going to be a part of bigger transitions. So what we may see during that time on a more worldly level is we could see, for example, more countries ending their relationship with China, or with companies like Huawei that are based in China that are designed for stealing information, or other things like that. So we're going to see some partnerships ending, because people are going to start separating from that corruption. They're going to start saying no to it. And that's all part of the bigger transitions that we're making to move people all around the world into greater freedom. That's part of a bigger transition that's going on there, which is so important in our world. But again, we have to do it in the places we can in our own little individual point, and not just rely on the people in political offices or things like that to do it for us. We have to do it from our own space as well. We're going to see a lot of rapid movement, possibly very rapid success happening. Again, the competition is going to be really strong between world leaders and, those that feel that their power is threatened. They're going to create a lot of competition. They're going to be hardcore trying to push things through. We've already had a couple of states here that said they will mandatory vaccine people once there's a vaccine available. No questions asked. So what's going to happen? We're going to see people vacating those states like crazy. We're going to see all kinds of things happening, but we also have to keep coming back into realizing there are people that are going to be working on stopping those measures as well. So there's going to be a lot coming up, I think, still. A lot of projection energy during the last week of September from insecurity. And again, that's going to be like, we could see more things coming out about the Q movement during that time, where they're going to try to present them more and more as terrorists when they're not terrorists. Also, during the first week and a half of the month, it's going to be a big time to just put our energy into the dream. So instead of, be aware of what's happening in the world, but then put your energy and focus it into something positive, something that's based in truth, something that's based in love. And whatever that is, even if it's not connected to world events, by putting your energy into something that is true and loving, then we're going to feed and nurture that energy. And that will build momentum to the bigger spheres to be able to handle the corruption in there. During, again, the last, maybe from the 6th through the 27th of September, we're going to be seeing the difference between command and control. And there's a big difference. Again, that's going to magnify our competition energy in there. Stress, anxiety, tensions are going to be running high. But we're going to see who's actually taking command of things, who's being more of a leader, and who's trying to control and move into a dictatorship. So the truth is getting clearer and clearer throughout September. A lot of exposure, a lot of things come into the surface then. October, as we move into that month, we're going to see people coming to the aid of others. So this is very interesting, following the codes of September, where we see the breaking off from corrupt relationships, breaking of partnerships due to corruption. And those people that break off are most likely going to come to the aid of those people who are offering positive or good relationships. So this is one of those last minute things that we could really see a lot of pull coming away from, say, Biden or people he's associated with, and moving towards Trump. And we might see a lot more big world leaders coming forward and giving him support in things. And that's just a natural sequence of events. When you look at a breaking away or an ending of a corrupt relationship, and then support going to positive relationships in there. A lot of jealousies, a lot of insecurities getting exposed. And we could actually see we could see a potential assassination attempt on somebody. Might be Trump, might be somebody else. There could be different people. If somebody's broken away from a bad relationship, we might see a assassination on them. So, if you've got a world leader that says, nope, I'm not going to be part of the corruption anymore, and they break away, they could be the victim of an attempt on there. The good thing is that all the energy currents, when we look at these power structures, is it's favoring the people that are doing the right thing. When we look at the code currents, it's favoring the people doing the right thing. So even if there's an assassination attempt made, it's being made from the basis of trying to feel successful or better than somebody else. And it is, that could come even in the form of just doing a lot of discrediting as opposed to an actual physical attempt in there. But it definitely is going to focus around our world leaders and our politicians in there. And it's unlikely that the attempt would be successful. So we're, here again, we're seeing that good versus evil dynamic that I talked about earlier that's throughout the end of this year coming up, where, hey, if you're going to break away from our communist structure or our globalist structure or our Marxist structure, then look at what's going to happen to you. We're going to attack you. We're going to go after you. So that's kind of the dynamic I could see playing out there. From October 1st to the 22nd, we've got true leadership coming forth during that time. So again, a lot of, actually, even in all of this chaos, a lot of positive energy. And we're gonna see that coming out, and we'll see a little bit of a fight coming out from those that are trying to take leadership positions in order to create strife. So, get the popcorn out, as they say, because it's going to be quite a show. There's going to be a lot of mudslinging in October. For those that aren't sure what that is, that's a lot of lies, a lot of just bantering back and forth of, well, you did this and you did that and you did that, yeah. And a lot of verbal attacking going on during that time. And then as we move into the last week of October, there's a lot of revolutionary energy coming up. We might see some baiting of those with confidence. Well, let's see how strong your confidence is. There's going to be a lot of targeting that last week of October on those people who are exposing the truth. Where we may see more censorship at that time. We might see more accounts coming down from people who are exposing the truth. So we have definite components there that are going on. And we have, again, endings and transformation. But what we want to keep in mind with the endings and the transformation and these pieces that are happening is there's a really sweet victory on the other side of it. So if we can hold that in our heads and say, man, this really sucks going through this, but there's a really sweet victory if we get through it. So, that if we can hold that positive piece in our head, that'll be great. What's going to be interesting in this last week of October, and this could tie into what some people call conspiracy theories, right? About the bringing down of all of this corruption and people being indicted and, will they be sentenced? Will they be put to death? What's the thing? There's rumors out there in the what they call the conspiracy realm that a lot of celebrities who have indictments against them will have a choice of appearing as suicide or public exposure or things like that. And so there is actually in the code patterns strong amount of celebrity deaths happening. I'm seeing there are shooting sprees that are showing coming up in the codes in overly populated areas. And I imagine these are going to be false flags, in all honesty. Corruption is probably going to send somebody out there. There probably is. Yes, there's probably going to be innocent people hurt in this situation, but they are probably going to be false flags. They're staged events is most likely what it's going to be. And we will see a lot of car accidents, a lot of just strange happenings, things that seem like they're defying physics or defying the reality of how things should happen. So this last week of October is going to bring in a lot of high profile family arguments. We could even see one of them, I could possibly see CNN has been setting it up for there to be controversy. I think it's in Korea with the Kims and Kim Jong-un and then his sister in there. And there's been all these rumors going on and little subtle pieces for a few months about, he's going to disappear and she's going to take over. And so I could see in circles like that, or even in the royal family, I could see the conflicts, say, between Prince Harry and Prince Andrew, or, these circles, we're going to see their family conflicts, their contradictions coming more out into the open. So
as soon as you said that, I had royal family.
Mm-hmm. So I think, this is going to be a really intense week. And of course, this is the week and a half prior to election. So you've got, even if this wasn't an election year, there would be a lot happening from these code patterns. And if that's not enough, we're going to be throwing in there really dramatic and severe weather patterns. On top of this, Mother Nature is going to be reacting to all of this turbulence.
I hope I get my roof fixed by then.
Yeah, please get your roof fixed. Make sure your structures are stable. Make sure you've got extra provisions so that you're, okay for a week or 2 weeks or something like that. In the event that something happens in your area. I mean, but it's all reacting. Mother Nature is reacting to the turbulence in the area. And that's real magnified even in the first couple of weeks of October. Just the spiraling of lies. It's going to be really hard to separate lies from truth. And but again, it's a big breakthrough time. It's a big transformation time. It's a time where one of the big pieces or aspects of transformation in October is going to be about leaving behind materialism. And we need to separate the materialism from just money in there. Materialism is the greed. It's a type of lifestyle. It's a striving for material things. So what that does, when we leave that behind, it means that we're going to be bringing in an increase of values and ethics in things. So I'm going to take a break there before we get into the November stuff, which is going to have all our election information in it.
Overrunning on this quite a bit, but I'm happy to go on as long as everyone else is. We know at the end of the day, I like these shows just to take the pace that they do. As long as you were happy with that, Anne, with us continuing. Richard, is there any points that you want to bring up? We still got the listeners here. We've still got people watching and contributing in the chat as well. But Richard, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I'm just listening. It's such there's too much at the moment, right, to, I think, give anybody a clear direction. And I think, you can only equate it to your own actions in life, I think. And you think of the corners you might have cut, or where you've turned a blind eye, or where you've let something happen, and you put that up to the next sort of class system, and then you put that up again, and you just it happens. It's natural. It's nature, right? We're in a world we don't understand. We have a system we never agreed to. We have divide that we would have never ever have wanted for ourselves, and in the process of that, you're trying to exist, understand the universe around you, and it's a lot to just for a human being to take in. And I think it's only through justifying what the human being you want to be and the person you want to be remembered for, that is going to change anything. I mean, most people, unfortunately, I mean, I've known it from my own friends that they were brought up to look after number one. Number one is the most important. And in that, it's kind of a dark sense of humanity. If it's only yourself that matters, you're willing to. There's a lot you're willing to go through in that mindset, and it's I want a better world. I want a better world for my kids, for the people I love, and I know there's a lot of people that deserve it. It's like we're having all these leaders now. What if the people come together and we said we're going to pick a child, right? We're going to pick a certain child, right, with certain attributes and certain beliefs, and we put them in charge of every part of the world, right? So you wouldn't have, if it happened in one country, like it did, for example, with New Zealand, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, she made the rest of the world look ridiculous. And it's only now that her name is being tarnished in with, what's his name? The Microsoft guy. I can't. His name Bill Gates and Melinda. She's tarred with our brush now. So, but if you put a child in charge of a country, and other countries are going to think this weak, right? But if you did it to every country, and they make the decisions, you've taken the problem away, because the decisions are made with innocence. They're made with a childlike mind, not with a corrupt. I want all the power. I've got control of the biggest arsenal in the world. I have all the money and power, and people that do as I say, like jump. I say jump, they jump. You work that out, or you work that down, and it's just, there's so many answers to change the systems we have. I heard a brilliant. It's a guy, Morg, his name is, right? He's Hyperion, right? And he's got a big following, and he's got a big YouTube following and Facebook following. And he was on about socialism and capitalism. And he was saying they have to be abolished. They have to be abolished. A new world where like reason and logic take precedent. He said we'll have to have a bit of socialism, because we'll have to have the NHS and public schools, and we'll have to have a bit of capitalism, because we'll have to have people who will strive to better themselves. And it's like, you just contradicted yourself. You just said we need to do away with these two things, but we also need them to make a society better. So you just, it's getting to that point where I think people are saying it, but it's understanding how to make it really work. And it's like, there's just so much going on at the moment that we can do it. It can be done. We are on the brink. If we bring this down, if we say enough is enough, we're not having this, we're not having that, we can, as a people, we've got this far in the world, we can make it better. We can change the system.
I just want to say, because obviously playing for a little bit of time, just want to highlight in the chat, Ollie Duffer said, after 19,000 killed in OAP homes, the peace treaty was between the United Arab Emirates and Israel. And Joseph Williamson has said, Anne is wonderful as always. So I want to give a shout out to everyone who's been watching. Thank you very, very much, guys. We're in it for the long haul tonight, because the information, Anne, you're bringing through is, well, I know it's resonating with me, and I can't wait to hear what you've got left to say. And I just want to thank you for coming on and offering your insight to the channel, and offering your insight to us, because I think I don't know, it's been ringing true with me personally, and I think do you feel the same, Rich?
Yes, always the same. Always fascinated by what is saying about our world.
I was thinking of naming like the last week of October week X, so we'll just do a video stream like throughout the week, just different videos, and we'll see what. But perhaps we'll get you on that last week of October, and so you could make sense of the turmoil as we're going through it.
I think so. Well, and I think that we have to keep taking time for the soul's self. This is very important. The more intense our world is, the easier it is to keep getting wrapped up in everything. We have to keep taking the time away. I mean, if ever there was a time to honor a Sabbath day in our world, this is it. We need to give ourselves a sacred day every week. We need to take time out for soul time, to be in nature, to do these things, because this is critical. We need to recenter ourselves. And, as you were talking, Richard, it's so interesting where on one hand, yes, we do have to abolish these things. And we do know that globalism, socialism, Marxism, that all of these work against divine alignment. They all work against the natural divine processes and what God energy or divine presence is, and they all exterminate divine presence in our world. There has been a movement about conscious capitalism, which offers freedom. And that's the thing. The one thing with capitalism is it offers people freedom. Freedom to be successful if they want to be successful, not be successful if they don't want to be successful. And I've actually had some friends that started a movement several years back, or Jesse did actually, that was about conscious capitalism, where they were using their influence in the world and their resources to create preserves around the world so that land would be untouched and unspoiled for many generations to come, to be able to enjoy it, for wildlife to be preserved. So maybe 10% of their land that they bought would be developed, and the other 90% would go into a trust, a land trust that could not be touched ever. So it could never be destroyed.
Just a point to hear, and I know there's some people watching that would wonder about this, because does capitalism really give a choice though? Because at the end of the day, if you've got like medicine, for example, and you have got a choice of what doctor you go to, but if you've not got the money for it, you've got no choice at all. And that's the problem with the capitalism that we are having now, is it favours the people with and not the people without.
I think that if it is set up right, it will bring favor to everybody. We're never going to have this equality of everybody's making the same amount of money, has the same type of house, the same car, and all of that, because people have different preferences, right? Some people want to live in a log cabin in the woods. Some people want to live in a skyrise apartment in the city and things like that. But the choice is the important thing. And yes, there are definitely some things that we have to pay attention to, even in a capitalist structure. And I think in the long run, we're going to see more and more given into the hands of people. And this is where, as individuals, we need to start looking at, do we really want to rely completely on public schools? What if we start, opening again? You've got people that do more private schools, that are smaller schools. We know that kids learn better sometimes in smaller environments, but we also have to balance that with making sure they are getting interaction with a variety of kids and students and things like that. But if we come into supporting more and more of the small business owner, the individual proprietorships, the local farmers, and things like this, we can stay out of a lot of the big issues. And yes, corporations have their place. Yes, big companies can have their place. But one of the big things that the codes have talked about over and over again is they are going to have to restructure into a more ethical format if they're going to survive. Because the movement of where everything is headed is not going to be about greed. and you cannot hold people in slavery, and you cannot continue to have unethical conditions for people and pay that doesn't allow them to take care of their basic needs. And so this is, this year has been all about restructuring, and next year in the codes is all about change. So all this year has been setting the foundation in a lot of ways. It's kind of like the big remodel on a house. You buy the house and you start knocking out the walls and preparing it to be redone, and then you come in and make all the big changes on it. Well, that's kind of what we're going through in the world at the same time. So this year has been about knocking down some of those walls and prepping it to have a whole different look to it and a whole different way, and to bring the walls and everything into functioning, bring the electrical up to date, as they say, and things like that. So we're in for a lot of change next year, but change doesn't have to be a bad thing. And it can be a good thing. It makes people uneasy. It can make a lot of people uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing. And that's where, if we come back and we focus and we say, hey, I really love what this individual person is doing. And a lot of the small business owners are not necessarily charging exorbitant prices over big corporations. Part here again, that's where we have to look and say, we have to get out of the money grasp and not look at things just from a money aspect of what is the cheapest thing or what's the most expensive thing, because the most expensive thing doesn't make it better, and the cheapest thing is oftentimes not the best thing either, because of everything else it's supporting. So when we come into the individual proprietorships, what happens, and when we start supporting more of those individual companies, the small businesses, is that we're not feeding all of these other big organizations that they're partnershiped with. And this is a huge thing. When we're not feeding all the additional the corporations and their partnerships, now we're changing the world. And you see, this comes right back to the individual. The individual has so much more power than they've been harnessing or using or taking advantage of. And, yes, maybe you drive an extra 5 miles to go do that business with the small business owner, but that is worth it for the bigger payoffs we get in the world and the bigger payoffs that we get in our lives and things. So I wanted to just tack on, because I agree with you, Richard, on those things. And we do have to look at these things, and we do have options, and we do have ways to maintain or to create a conscious way of doing things that is inclusive, that does help people, like my friend that I was talking about, or Jesse's friend that she knew, that did this this work in conscious capitalism. And the proceeds then of things that they got from the part that was developed on these properties then went to support city parks. They went to support positive programs for children. They went to support green spaces in the cities, things like this. So we have that potential. We have that potential to make it beneficial for everybody. And that's what we have to look at, is where are the possibilities? What gives us the possibilities? And certain things can do that and certain things can't. Do you guys want to say anything before I jump into November and the elections?
Let's go to the elections, because I think...
Okay.
Just one point was quickly, Richard, I think I made the same point that Jesse's just made to you on a phone call the other night, but yeah, I think you are going to see more power come into the individual, because what this restructuring has done is put the individuals back against the wall, and you've got two options there, and that's come out fighting or, shit or bust, basically. So I agree with you that, and we have started seeing that shift over the last 10 years. But I'm dying to see what you've got for November, so I'll shut up.
So November is going to bring in a lot of focus on personal care, our personal path. That's going to get a little more introspective in some ways. We're going to see kind of a reduction at that time in business activity. Business isn't really favored. More of the ethics, the way we're treating each other, the way we're living our lives. We're still going to have upheaval. We're still going to have unexpected things hitting us at that time. But we're going to have to look to the past for some solutions. And this is a similar influence that we had going on earlier in the year. For example, when HCQ started coming out, that was going into the past to find a solution that would work here and now in things. There's going to be, again, be more of a focus about what is going to support us moving forward in things. And the last week or so of the month, we're going to be seeing more people that are going to be taking command over those that don't have morals and ethics. So we're going to see, again, that shift in power coming, more command for what is ethical, more influence there, and more crumbling of what is not ethical. So still the control and power plays going on. Still the truth is going to be coming out. But what's going to be interesting is in November, in that last week, I think we're actually going to start seeing truth come out in mainstream media. And that's not something we've had in a long time. So this is going to be kind of an interesting piece. And a lot of this is going to be about global stuff. It's going to be about exposing world leaders. And I think kind of the MSM, the mainstream media, is not going to be able to avoid reporting the truth come the end of November, from what I can see. And part of this is because there's going to be a huge crumbling of the good old boy structures. And for those that aren't familiar with what the good old boy structures are, those are the people that come in, they're corrupt, they have their own little network of people, and you know, they exclude a lot of people. They exclude a lot of cultures, they exclude women, they exclude this, and they've got their own little clique of elite people or power people. And we're going to see big crumbling happening of those good old boy structures, crumbling of corrupt networks, crumbling of big power sources, corporations who refuse to come into stronger ethics with what they're doing are going to take really big blows. So, you know, again, we could still see some of the remnants of big pharma stuff taking some big blows. We could still see those that are very chemical based, those that are trying to steal information. I could see some big blows coming into, say, like China or some of the networks there happening. But prior to getting to that point, we're going to have to hit harsh realities first. And that's going to happen right around the middle of November, big harsh realities. Also in the first 3 weeks of November, we're going to see a big push of fear and threats coming through. So this is kind of like the last big threat before they go under type of thing is what I see. They're going to make that big fear to try to enslave everybody. That is maybe when we see this massive push to try to force vaccines on people, or for shutdown or confinement, or making people a victim. And we have to stop being the victim. The big key in that point is to stop being the victim at that place, and to realize that this is nothing more than a bunch of lies that they're hoping that we're going to accept and buy into before they take a big tumble. And we just have to kind of dig in, bear it out, go into our meditations, and let them crumble and not buy into it. It's not easy to watch the destruction happening. It's not easy to see the crumbling happening, but we need to see it happen, and we need to allow it to happen. And we need to not interfere with the crumbling of corruption happening. So that brings me to November 3rd in there. And, you know, overall, Biden has some favorable codes on his own. We know that Kamala Harris is the vice president candidate at this point. The challenge with the two of those is we never know whether they're actually going to make it to the election or if we're going to see one of those trickery aspects that I talked about earlier come around and get switched out in there. And I say this because there's already looks like there are investigations and things underway to motion that Kamala is not legal to take a vice presidential or presidential office and things. So it's a little hard to gauge things, not knowing if these are really going to be the true candidates come November 3rd or not. One of the big plays that we see is that they're trying to mess everything up in ballots and voting through the mail-in system and try to utilize that to drag things out so that then they can bring in the Speaker of the House, which I don't think anybody wants, Nancy Pelosi. I don't think either side, they would rather see Biden before they saw Pelosi in office in there. So it's a little bit of a struggle there. But again, Trump has incredibly favorable codes in things. And this particular date is interesting because it represents completion and it represents things getting finished. And it represents the ending of one chapter and the beginning of another. So this is not necessarily about just a presidential turnover, but this is literally, and they've said it, this is literally the election that will determine the huge collapses of the corruption. Because once everybody knows that Trump is president again, you're going to see all kinds of things just shift automatically. People that have been afraid to take a stance, that have been maybe afraid to support him, are going to come out and support him because there won't be a risk anymore. They know he's going to be there for a certain amount of time. This date, this time could show that even small lies could create big havoc. It's going to be a date, though, that's also about rectifying a lack of integrity. So here again, that tells me he's probably going to be the one that's going to step in because there's bigger corruption for who he's running against. There's a bigger lack of integrity there. And he is really trying to do what he can to bring more people into integrity. And, like him or not, the reality of it is he is putting forth, as you mentioned earlier, Richard, a lot of good motions for things to happen in our world that we need to have happen. This date and this time also indicates moving from disaster to success. Well, we've been in disaster with the previous administrations. We've been in huge disaster. And this is all about moving out of that. This is all about doing that through truth and accountability. So there's some big piece that I think might be a last minute twist coming in regarding accountability. And we know that Biden has not been accountable.
It always
for
ends
a lot
on a
of
twist,
things.
doesn't it? It always ends.
Yeah.
Every good journey ends on a twist.
And Kamala Harris has also not been accountable. So I think we could see an interesting twist coming there. The two of them put together, I think they also have ending energy that's there. And when we combine that with the date, the actual date, we see that they will be throwing temper tantrums, basically. They are going to be showing their jealousies and their pettiness. And this is going to come out visibly to people, which means that could even start unfolding early on in that day, which could completely change the way people vote. They might be starting off thinking, I'm going to vote party with the Democrat Party, and these twists could come up and they'd be like, no, done. I'm not doing it. And then go vote Republican. So I think this election is going to be full of a bunch of little twists in there. The challenge that I see in here is when I start to look at it, Biden is just it kind of shows that he's kind of in his own little world on this day, kind of like he's in his own little bubble, unattached to a lot of things. And yet Kamala it shows she's probably the one that's going to have some very vindictive energy come out. There's going to be some sort of quick and rapid success that shows up on that day, which could be what a lot are perceiving as the major landslide victory for the Trump-Pence ticket. And that coming out of the silent majority that's out there. And we do have some energy things around this date. When we combine Pence and Trump together, or when we look at Kamala's codes that are connected to assassinations. So there could be assassination attempts that happen. So I am sure that they are well aware that those attempts are probably going to be made. There will probably be extra precautions taken. I have no doubt about it. I am positive that those attempts will not be successful in things. I think if Kamala Harris is still in the running come that date, I think she's going to be extremely attacked verbally. I think she's going to be extremely berated. I think that, again, they're going to be showing their true colors. And when Pence and Trump's energy comes together on that day, it shows rapid success for them. And they've got all the codes in their favor. They've got the codes of the White House in their favor. They've got the codes of their positions in their favor. They've got all of that there. And one of the things when we look at the interaction of, say, a piece of property, when I look at the interaction of, say, the address of the White House and the White House in that position, and let's say that Trump and Biden had an equal strength in their codes there. The property, the address, the land that is there will naturally choose the person who is in integrity over the person who is not in integrity, if all other things were equal. And since Trump already has an energy flow of being in there for a while, and the land already has the experience of what Biden was like in there, it already knows where it's going to choose. It already knows what it's aligned to. Because any energy pattern would much rather be working for something positive and good in the world than to be working for something that is destructive and unfavorable in the world. That is the way our land works by nature. So it will do everything it can to keep a positive influence there. So the codes are showing victory for Trump and Pence. The codes are showing it's likely to be quick and it's likely to be a landslide, which means no matter how much the corrupt parties try to do things, no matter how much they try to influence things, it's not going to work. They're just going to bring their own selves crashing down more because everything favors going into the truth and accountability, and they're refusing to be accountable for anything. So it's all self-destructive for them in that process. What do you think? Richard doesn't need his Kleenex.
Yes, I'll be happy if Biden doesn't get in. It's like, it's like in this country now, right? We've lost Labour. It's just been taken apart. And we have the Tory party who are in power now. And who is there to impose them? Who is their opposition? And it's like, who do you choose when either person has their downfall? And you can't, but I am ecstatic that Biden may go crumbling down. Because I have watched, I'm not joking, I've watched whoever would back him. Have you seen videos of him and the way he acts around children? And the way he just, his mindset, the company he keeps, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't actually believe it when he was in running. I couldn't. I was like, wait there, that's the. And I'm sorry if this offends, but that's the creepy old guy I've seen off the telly. When I went back, I was like, I've seen him on YouTube, like doing, just being weird, like. And now he's gonna. There's a possibility he could be president. No, come on, peeps. You can't do it. You can't do it. Whatever you think of Trump, it's the same thing with Trump and Hillary. You only had one choice in it. You were never going to go for Hillary with the email scandal and everything else she was involved in. You were never going to pick her. You couldn't. If you did, you're ridiculous. It's like the people in our country, they chose the Tory party when they had Corbyn. And Corbyn, on the run-up, made every right decision that a human being could physically make. Right? He was against Trident, which was nuclear submarines. Right? He had quite a humanistic view on immigration. Right? He was quite up on the health service, the working class, and we voted in these people who were like throwing champagne over people and backing bankers and blatantly lying and like peeing on tramps. We picked them. That's mental. And it's got to come to a point where we got to start thinking as human beings. The reason we're in this mess is because we're putting people who have a really bizarre moral compass in charge of the decisions that govern our lives. You've got to see. But when the problem is as well, like I said, we're not being given a good choice. If there was a brilliant humanitarian, right, and there was a politician, who are you going to pick? If there's a person that spent all their life doing good in the world for absolutely zero gain because that's where their heart is, and then there's a politician, who are you going to pick? It's on that, but we're not having that option. We're having a politician or a politician. We're having money or money.
Well, and I think it's kind of like they're trying to stack the cards in their favor as much as they can. And this is where I think once the election happens and Trump is reelected, that we're going to see the change, because right now the corruption is being told, don't worry, you're going to be okay. We got this. We're going to win the election. And as soon as they find out they didn't win again, they were so sure Hillary was going to win. But, once they realize, okay, that's not it. I mean, it's like game over. It's game over at that point. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to kick and fight and scream along the way. But what happens is when you get people like Ghislaine Maxwell or people like this, you know what? They all turncoat. Those bad guys all turncoat on each other, and it's all like, no, he did this. Well, if you think mine was bad, what did you think he did? And it's like,
that's what bad guys do.
That's what the bad guys do. They all just start turning themselves in, so you don't really have to do the work. So I think that, even around the world, this corruption is going to fall because they're not going to have the structure. Trump goes in again. They know Trump is going to finish bringing them down. They know that it's all going to come, full circle, so to say. And they know they're not going to be able to get out of accountability. And they're watching things that they're like, how, they've said you'd need a magic wand to do it. And then he did it, so somewhere he's got a magic wand. I don't know what it is, but he's there, he's got it. And the reality of it is I think these corrupt people are going to fall out. You've got some people that already have indictments against them. For example, Trudeau. And we're going to see some of these people come down. We're going to see them changing, and this is part of that restructuring of the mindset of, charisma doesn't make them a nice person. A philanthropy organization doesn't make them a nice person. Doesn't mean that they're really doing good in the world. And this is a hard thing for a lot of people to wrap their minds around, because a lot of times people still want to see things in the pure sense, and they don't want to see these deeper layers that are attached to these things. And that's part of why I started, the Connecting Codes channel on YouTube, which is also on BitChute. And it's to help people understand from my code perspective these deeper layers of what's happening. And, I believe sincerely there's a lot of things that have gotten a bad rap, and not everybody in those circles are bad people. Not everybody in the Democratic Party are bad people. A lot of them have very good motives there, very good hearts there. They've just gotten lost in a lot of distortions. They've been fed a lot of distortions, and it's not what it used to be. Not everybody in the Republican Party here is good guys by any chance. But I think that's one of the things about Trump, is it's not about parties really for him. It's about taking care of these issues. And if you're in corruption, he's going to go after you no matter which side of the fence you're on. If you're working as a good person in integrity, he's going to bring you in, and he's going to give you those chances. And so I think there's pieces like that people haven't quite wanted to digest, because they've been fed so much hate. And we're going to have to step out of this hate, and we're going to have to step back to, again, our personal lives and say, I got to hold the integrity in my own life. And part of this process does require a little bit of faith. It's, as they say, God wins in the end. With or without humans, God wins in the end. So, you gotta understand the essence of what divine presence is, and go with the truth, and go with integrity, and go with those aspects, because that's what's going to open the door. And I think we're going to see it, Richard. I think these people that are in corruption, again, next year, there's a lot of changes, and we still got a lot coming this year. And come November 4th, there's going to be a lot of people rethinking things, going, yeah, I don't think I'm going to stick around. I think it's time for me to step down. Just look at all the CEOs in the companies, all the places around the world, and even government officials and military officials that have stepped down because they know they're done. They know that's it.
Well, as we are going into obviously December, talking about good guys, I'm hoping the codes say Santa's okay.
Well, so what we've got with December is we've got a lot of reflecting and releasing going on. So still some ups and downs, but I think overall in the last part of November and going into December, we are at least going to get periods that are going to be a little bit calmer. From the 1st through the 21st of December, we could see some trouble stirred up through deception, through manipulation. I think this is going to be a little backlash from election results. We're going to see some aggression and irritation come out. Life can feel a little heavy in this time. And I think part of that is just people trying to process everything will have happened by then, process everything that's gone down in 2020 in there. And I think that there's still that uncertainty about, well, what's next? I've been so busy fighting things or standing in this place or that place and arguing and protesting. What's next? And so there's a bit of uncertainty that can make life feel heavy at that point. But then we move into the last week of the month, and what we're seeing is positive stress. And when I say positive stress, that's the stress that comes with knowing that we finally have possibilities for success. We finally have the possibilities to make some good things happen. It comes from learning from our mistakes and then realizing, okay, now we're about to venture into something. So even when we have good things going on and we're excited about something that's going on, there's stress related to that. And that's the positive stress. So it's not the beat you down and tear you up kind of stress. It's the kind of stress that, yeah, I'm actually excited for this going through, but I still don't know exactly how it's all going to unfold. All month long, what we see is that there will be windfalls happening where there is true compassion. So this is a great marker point for us to take a look at. Where are the windfalls happening? Where are the big positive booms happening? Because the people that are behind those windfalls are the people who are operating in compassion. So again, another guidepost, another checkpoint for us. Any hardships that come up are there to humble us, which they're there to show us where we're out of alignment. They're there to show us where our ego has gone too far, where we are operating too much in materialism or greed or things like that. So the hardships are going to hit those people that need to be humbled, and those areas that need to be humbled. We have a really strong God and divine presence during the month of December, which is wonderful. That should be a great relief for people. There's going to be a big focus, or the key focus will be on self-sufficiency. Okay, we're going to move forward now. Now, how do we move forward in a more free and self-sufficient way? How do we, so we might even see the rumblings at that point of something that I actually alluded to in the Connecting Codes video that's getting ready to post probably tonight, that has to do with energy that is a little supposedly going to be better for our environment and still be cost effective, that has like 35 countries involved in it. So I talk about that a bit in the Connecting Codes video that I'm just about to release tonight on things. So that's going to be interesting. A piece in there. We could see something coming up at the end of the year about that. That might be coming to the forefront more. From December 2nd to the 21st, this is a time where we are going to have to stand up for the bullies. So again, I said that's, we can see a little bit of backlash, and this is a time for us to stand up for other people, for being treated well, for the underdog, for the person that's being bullied. And we need to stand up and say no to the people that are doing the bullying. This is going to be a time where we're going to see a bigger focus on issues and solutions that look out for the well-being of people. So there's a lot, this is a beautiful, positive energy that shows that we're going to be moving in the right direction. And this is another affirmation of why I know that Trump is going to be elected, because the people that are running against him will not promote this. They're not the ones promoting this. So if the codes are saying this is coming up, then it's inevitable that those people aren't getting in office, and he is. December 22nd through the 31st, so kind of the last week and a half there of the month, it looks like there's going to be some big accomplishments that we're going to be able to celebrate at that time. We should have reason to be celebrating. Granted, there's always going to be those people out there that are going to hold their hate and their disdain and things like that.
We made it. We got through the year.
We made it. We got through the year. But I think that we're going to, again, see enough positive possibilities, enough things being released of where we're headed, that's going to bring hope in and give us a reason to celebrate. The one kind of big challenges that I see coming in, family conflicts. And so here again, I think in celebrities, royals, elites, power structures, we are going to have those come out into the public, the conflicts that are there. And the conflicts that are happening are rooted around one being jealous or greedy over another. And the person who is jealous and greedy will be the one attacking. They'll be the one on the attack. They'll be the one that's trying to gain command. They'll be the one that will be tearing down, the one that is working with cleaner motives. From the 1st through the 15th, a lot of competition energy coming forward, some very strong egos, some power games. So I see that fitting in where in there. So I think that little bit of backlash, we might see that little. And as we finish out the month, there's probably going to be some upheaval or it's probably more connected with nature, but it could be connected to other things. And what this is all about is bringing closures and endings and opening us to the transformation. And so the upheaval and the endings and the closures in those last 2 weeks of the year is all about, it's all about being a catalyst for transformation. It's all about moving us into the next step, the next phase, the next opening, and making the shift in things. So I think we've got some pretty darn nice energy overall to complete the year with.
Well, you ended that and on 22/22, which is kind of bizarre.
Which is brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
Well, so we know that Santa's going to have a very big naughty list. We know that for certain.
He'll have a light delivery load this year.
He's going to have a few,
And we know he's going to look pretty odd with a mask. But I'm going to tell you something interesting, because you said in November about the vaccine, right? Now, as of 4 weeks ago, United Arab Emirates were stage 2 in their vaccination trials. They've had thousands of volunteers. They've done it in Arab Emirates, apparently, because it's a multi-diverse culture. And I think it's 2 months to the next stage. And as it was 4 weeks ago. Well, no,
and
3
they're the ones
weeks
who
ago.
signed the peace treaty that we were talking about earlier as well.
Yeah, they're the only country in their trials to be at stage 2 of the vaccine. So another 4 weeks and the vaccine will be at stage 3, and that means for public use. So it's interesting, man. The fact that you said that. So
well, and we know that Russia and China has already released it, and I think we're going to see some issues come up from it. I think that hopefully there will be enough delays. I know here in the U.S. there are certain clauses that if there is a treatment for something, that they will not be able to mandate the vaccines. They can mandate them in crisis, and this is where the controversy comes in with states and stuff like that if there's a certain crisis, but they cannot do it if there is a treatment that's already approved. So if HCQ is an approved treatment, or if the light therapy, the blood therapies are a treatment, then they cannot push the vaccines through on the state levels. So it's going to get really interesting, because we're going to see this battle. So we're going to see a battle, and they're going to try it, and what they're going to try to do is come into companies that are your bigger corporations, right? Your electronic companies, your medical professions, your people like Walmart, and they're going to say, you're going to have this in order to have your job. And this is why frequently I keep coming back to, we need to look at the smaller companies in there, and we need to start supporting our local businesses that are not attached to all of this and get out of these requirements. People cannot be afraid to walk away from these organizations and seize the opportunity to either do their own thing or to get into something that is a smaller company that is not going to be bought out, paid for, and enforced, because a lot of those bigger companies are going to come under threat by these structures and this corruption, who pay for them, who buy them out, who have their hands in them, who pull the strings of their CEOs. And so people have to be afraid to not walk away from that. And it's a scary thing to do, but it can be done, and in the long run, we all win.
Well, I got to be honest, I know a lot of people was interested in that show then, and they watched it and they commented, and I hope this give people a bit of hope for the rest.
And at least 20 each playback lasts about 20 minutes, so there's actually been quite a lot of interest.
And I think that I know some people like to break it up when there's a longer show like this. They'll break it up and watch it in 2 or 3 segments as they can, or things like that. So I imagine that will continue to go out.
Yeah, I'll be breaking it down to chapters tomorrow, and I might see if I can work on a condensed version if I get the time to do it. But guys, honestly, I am going to share this around because I think people need to hear it, because it's definitely given me some hope. I've got to be honest.
And I will share it around, obviously, on both of my YouTube channels. For those that don't know, I have one channel under my name, Jessie on Nichols George, and it is more of a spiritual focus. It's more of a self-development focus on there. And then there is my Connecting Codes one, which has a lot of information about political things, events that are happening in the world, and doing some deeper digs on that.
What we'll do is, when we can put an end screen on this tomorrow, we'll put a direct link on this video, but I will see if I can put a card on the screen as well, so people can link to your channel. And please, guys, if you are watching, please go and check out Anne's channel, because I've been watching some of the videos on there and they've been absolutely fantastic. And we'll have to, I don't know whether to get you back on before the election or just after, or maybe if you want to come on for an election night special. What night is it? What day is the election?
Well, that would be an interesting thought, wouldn't it? Let's see here. Let me take a look real quick at my calendar. November 3rd. November 3rd is a Tuesday.
What do you reckon, Rich?
Sounds like a plan.
Do you want to do shall we do an election night special with Anne, and we'll have to hunker down, get some popcorn. We'll just do a bit of chat. we'll make it, if you're up for it, Anne. We'll do a bit of a longer stream. We'll have some discussions, and maybe we could show some videos from your channel, or maybe show some videos from our channel, or make a bit of an event out of it. What do you reckon?
Hey, I'm all for it.
Well,
I love it. I've done some of that in the past. It's interesting when I've taken a look at, it's not about predicting. It's about reading the different components that are involved. And I've done that with, this year I did it with the Super Bowl game, for example. So I had, explained what was happening, the dynamics of the two teams that were playing, and the dynamics we'd see play out. And then as the Super Bowl played, I was in messaging with friends, and I was saying, see, this is that dynamic. This is where the codes show. You see how they're playing this dynamic out. And it was really actually kind of fun to do that. It was kind of fun to do this sort of play-by-play thing going on.
We should perhaps we can we'll think of some ideas. We'll have a little bit of a collaboration in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see if we can come up with something. Maybe a bit of an idea for a night's special, an election special on November 3rd.
That works for me. I'm all for it.
Excellent. It is. Well, thank you very, very much for coming on the show, Anne. Was there anything else you wanted to cover before we finish tonight?
We've covered so much, so I'm sure people are going to go back and listen to this multiple times to find the information they want. I will remind people I do have my website, which is compassioncodes.com, CompassionCodes.com. And again, reminder that the 2021 version of the Code Journey will be coming out in about a month, approximately. I don't know the exact date yet. I'm still finishing some of the proofreading and photography for it and those sorts of things. And then we'll get it released. And that's very exciting. So watch for that. The links will go up on my website, also on social media. It's very easy to message me on Facebook if you want to do that. If you've got a question or you're wondering how to get hold of that information, or need the links to the channels, like I said, Connecting Codes, and then Jesse on Nichols George are the 2 YouTube channels. So I'm just excited, and I'm so happy that you guys gave me the opportunity to come in and do this and to offer people a little bit of hope as we go into the end of the year, knowing that it's not going to be an easy ride, but there is hope.
Thank the guys upstairs. They were the one who gave me the dream of me interviewing you, and that's what came of it. So we're gonna have to have a chat and have a think about something we could do for the election. I think that would be really, really cool, and maybe put a bit of a paranormal twist on it. It is. I think that would be quite epic and fun to do. Richard, any final thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I got a final thought. I know this has been a positive video, and 2020 is looking okay.
You better not neg this out now.
No, but just celebrate quietly, because 2020 is still listening. just in case, right? Don't, because it's. Have you seen that meme where it says you got number 13 says I'm a badass number. And then you got 666 saying I'm a badass number, and then you got 2020 saying bitch please. so just keep it on the down now. Celebrate in silence. I can't cope anymore. 2020. I can't.
Well, apparently the best is yet to come. So,
yeah,
as I've said, this is a gift that keeps on giving. But thank you very much, guys, for tonight's session. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I thought I've enjoyed every second of it. So thank you to all you guys who have joined us in the chat and everything that you guys have contributed to us. I'm just going to take some final words from the chat for you guys. Joseph says, there is no vaccine for SARS. Scientists do not know how to solve this problem via vaccine. Gates' vaccine is going to be totally unsafe. Jackie Truckwell said yes. Exciting election night. So some of you guys in the chat are going to be up for an election night special on Paranormal Now. I'm definitely up for that. It's going to be good fun. Hello Jackie. Hi to Joseph. Hi to Armand. I know he's unfortunate to Armand Adams. I think he might have to come back and listen to the rest of the show tomorrow, because I know that.
And Jackie said she has the code Journey. She says highly recommended.
Perhaps we'll have to organise. Maybe we'll purchase a copy off you, Anne, and maybe do a giveaway on the channel or something. We'll do something like that. Maybe I'll get a copy off you and for the channel, and maybe do some sort of giveaway or something, so we can promote it during the election night special, because I think it's going to be a very useful companion for people throughout 2021 if 2020 didn't go by.
Does it come with a knife?
I think it's I think it's always a great tool. Having that foresight is pretty powerful, even if you don't like everything you see. And I think that's the thing about the truth. We're not always going to like it, but it's always going to serve us well. So
yeah.
Well, thank you everyone. Thank you, Anne, for coming on the show, and thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you soon in another video. Take good care of yourselves. Love and light.
Thank you so much.